What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/All-NBA. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler, refreshed, rejuvenated, and ready for the on-season, the off-season behind us. Well, we're in the preseason, almost there, Legs. How you doing?
I'm great, man. Have we started? Is that what, camp's going on? Are we, because I do feel like it's a different vibe with training camps. It's more like the pace at which these guys kind of work themselves into shape is a lot different. Technically, we've begun. Okay, these teams are practicing. We've even had a couple preseason games already played. So everybody's rolling, but as you can see by looking around the league, very few veteran guys are pushing themselves to be ready anytime before opening week.
I think that's one of the storylines, and I was actually going to ask you some general questions about camp as somebody who's actually been through NBA training camps, because I think, and I've been around for 12 years now, I've seen 12 different training camps. Sometimes guys are in great shape when they arrive. Sometimes half the team's in shape and the half is like, hey, that's what camp is for, is to get into shape. What do you think? When in your experience, is it pretty uniform? Guys come with the expectation that we're mostly in shape, but we're going to start working our way to it? Or do you think, guys, it's like, hey, no, you show up ready because the job starts day one of camp?
I think it's completely changed over time. When I played, just telling you, guys expected day one to be absolute hell. If you weren't in shape, you were going to not only really suffer, your play was going to suffer. You're going to be constantly fatigued, and then you're going to be unbelievably sore, and it's just going to affect your entire training camp, and you could potentially get hurt. You anticipated, I'm talking guys going into camp during my era, you kind of lost sleep that last week leading up to camp because it was going to be that hard. Yeah. I played on teams, Adam, where you had to report the day before camp started and run a mile for time at a very specific time based on your position. These were tough times. And you knew 2-a-days were going to last for probably the first 4 or 5 days. And I'm talking 2-a-days, legit taped up both sessions, full scrimmaging, a ton of drills, a ton of running, a ton of defensive work, everything designed to just completely gas your legs and just work you as hard as possible leading up to the beginning of the season. You didn't have your first practice off until about the fourth or fifth day. So you went about 6 to 8 practices before you got one off to going 2 a day. Then they would give you off the morning and you'd scrimmage hard that night. Usually that was the night they'd open it to the public after the fifth day of camp. And you'd had off that morning to keep you fresher for this scrimmage for the season ticket holders or whoever wants to come. And then you went right back to 2-a-days, and that lasted, a week to 10 days. And then you broke camp, and then you got ready for your 7 or 8 exhibition games, which most guys
7 or 8 is a lot, man. That's such a waste.
7 or 8 exhibition games. And most of those guys, all up and down your roster, even the best players, even your stars, played in those games. They played in all of those games. It was just a totally different mentality than now, which is show up in decent shape, knowing that we're going to allow you the grace and the time to play yourself into shape over the next 3 weeks and be in really good shape, hopefully by the time the season starts. And in some cases, for some of these veterans, they're even taking the approach, you know what, as long as you're in shape 3-4 weeks into the regular season, we're good with that. So It's impossible to compare. And I know this because I've gone out to training camps and in the last, 10 years, and you're kind of like in shock for a player from the 90s to go and sit in a camp 3 day, second, third day of camp, and it's one session. And I went to a practice 5 years ago. I didn't see any live contact. Third day of training camp. And I'm just going, wow. And like there's 50 people in official team gear in the gym. Literally. There's that many
Yeah,
people.
so many trainers and coaches
There's
and
that
everybody
many
else.
trainers.
Yeah.
Like I watched a practice 5 years ago. A guy came out and all he did, his role was to do the warm up and down the court, the light calisthenic jogging type stuff, right? The high knee, like the simple basic stuff you do to warm up. And then he walked away and another guy came out to do like the next set. And I'm just going, that guy couldn't have done both of these. So it's literally impossible to compare.
This is such an old school rant. I love it.
Dude, it's not even an old school rant. This isn't even, this is like, is the game as physical as it used to be? Is the game better than it used to be? That's an old school, new school debate argument. And I don't fall on the same side of that all the time. I'm not one of those guys that's constantly talking about the old days. I'm just being honest. This isn't even a rant. This is just laying out the facts of the case of how much it has changed, which whatever, their whole goal now, preserve. And of course, I think there's very little evidence that it's actually working because I feel like guys are breaking down more often than ever. So I don't know that it's working, but that is the goal. Preservation of your legs is the number one goal with teams now when they start camp. And with Meyer, it just wasn't. It was run you into the ground to fight through physical barriers to get you more ready and toughen your body up for the start of the season. It was just a totally different mentality.
Did players look forward to camp, or was it like, was it excitement because everybody's coming together, the season starting, or was it a bit of dread because it's like, hey man, this is kind of this is boot camp before the fun begins?
First of all, somebody's saying back when I played, there were less teams in the league. No, there weren't. When was the last time we had expansion in the league?
Yeah, it was like, the Heat, the 92
it was 1988. I didn't come in the league till 90. I didn't come in the league till 90. So no, there's been 30 teams in the league.
Did you see? Was it Dwight Howard? Did you see Dwight Howard? He asked Charles Barkley if he ever played with Wilt Chamberlain?
Yeah, man, yeah. And I said to myself, look, I'm not saying that Dwight Howard is necessarily, I don't know, going to be super up on these kind of things. I felt like that was in a way he was mocking him and just calling him old as hell. You know what I mean? I think
this is what the chat's doing right now. They were like, "Hey, Legs, what was it like playing with George Mikan back then?"
He had to know that. But look, so to answer your question, the guys look forward to camp. I think veteran guys who had been around, who knew their place on the team, didn't really look forward to it that much. Guys that were role players or trying to make the league really looked forward to it. In the beginning, that I just described the beginning of my career. I'm trying to make teams as an undrafted free agent. You like for instance, I explained in Dallas that year we had to run the mile time the day before we left for camp. I won that easily, and I was determined to do it. I was in incredible shape every year going into camp because I thought this could be an advantage for me. Guys are going to get tired and winded and sore, and I'm going to continue to be able to run and get open and get shots. And like that's my way to differentiate myself from other guys and play at my best. So I think it just depends on where you're at. But I'm telling you, guys had nervous anxiety because you just knew it was going to be absolute hell for the first 3 or 4 days.
Well, on today's show, so that's good insight about training camp because I'm always curious, and I do think you can tell that some guys excited to be there, some guys like, hey man, every year we do the same thing. This is kind of just the payment for the year. But right now, because it is preseason, teams are coming together. I thought it'd be a good chance for us to talk about teams we're a little bit higher on and lower on than maybe general consensus. And the only way to do that is, of course, to use the FanDuel over/under lines. We're going to say, okay, that is where the market says these teams are at. Who are we a little bit higher? Who are we a little bit lower on? And we're going to start in the Western Conference, and we're going to start with some positivity. Legs, who are you over on in the Western Conference?
I actually have 2 teams. So, and I cheated because we're supposed to take one under. I had a hard time, Adam, finding an obvious, there's no way they're winning that many games type situation. Yeah. I just didn't find one. So I think because it's camp, because we're about to start the season, I'm going to focus on the positive of both ways. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with the team that I think might surprise you a little bit. One, maybe a little bit less surprising, but let's start with the Portland Trailblazers first.
Okay.
And I don't know if you're in agreement. I think the number, I saw one that was like 33 and a half. Then there's another one that's 34 and a half, whatever. It's right in that same range. I really like the potential of this team for a couple of reasons. I think, first of all, they have a young team for the most part. They had a Drew Holiday, so they get a little older at that spot. But I think in a lot of ways, that's going to be incredibly helpful to their locker room, to their approach, to their toughness, to their mentality. Anthony Simons is a more talented offensive player at this stage of his career. But Drew Holiday is going to bring, obviously, he still can defend at a high level, just that professionalism, toughness. He's a winner. I think this is exactly the type of guy. And I talked to Chauncey Billups about this about a week ago. He was so excited to add Drew Holiday to the locker room. So bringing him in, but I just look at their roster and I say, there's so many guys that have, I think, another big leap to take. And I think we saw it the second half of last year. They were 500 the last 42 games of the year. That's pretty impressive. When you look at a team that overall and in the Western Conference, to play your best basketball the second half of the year when there's teams that are trying to probably have rested guys, they're trying to really dig in the West to win games and establish your seeding and all of that stuff. To find a team that can play that well with mostly young players the second half of the year is a great sign. So I look at guys like Shaedon Sharpe, Deni Avdija, who had a breakout year for them. This guy's like a triple-double threat now most nights. And then I look at what this team could be defensively. When you put Drew Holiday on the floor with Toumani Camara, with the shot blocking that they have back there with Klingon, with Robert Williams, assuming he's ever healthy, Jeremy Grant, Shaedon Sharpe, the athleticism there, and Chauncey Billups talking about nothing but defense, being that's the area of growth and improvement. I have a gut feeling this team could be one of the better defensive teams in the Western Conference. They've got guys, Shaedon Sharpe in particular, and Avdi, I think, showed me they have a chance to really jump into another level. Scoot Henderson, another guy, I think, I don't love his game. He's really inefficient so far, but who knows, man? He's a young player. Does he take a leap? It's a really high pick in the first round. Maybe he takes the leap. Klingon's only a second-year player, had a very good rookie year. I just look at this team and I go, man, there's a lot there to like finishing the way they did, adding Drew, young players taking a leap, and then the defensive mentality with the personnel to go with it. I think Portland has a chance to be, I don't think they're going to smoke that number. They're not going to win 45 games, but maybe they're close to 500, which would be an incredible year for them. So maybe it's 38 and 44. That's still 5 games or over, whatever, 4 or 5 games over that number. So that's why for me, and here's another reason, Adam, those guys are going to play. Those young guys are going to play. They're going to play 70 games, north of 70 games. You're not going to have a bunch of these dudes playing 60 games. So they're going to show up. And in the West, with all these veterans and all these teams that loaded up with veteran talent that are going to take nights off and rest guys and all of this, that when you show up and just play your guys, your top 8, you have a chance every night to win. So I don't know. I'm high on them. I think they're going to be an exciting team to watch. I'm going to be very interested in watching them. I was the second half of the year. And I just think for all the reasons I laid out, I think Portland gets over that number.
So they won 36 last year. The line's 34 and a half. So they are a team that you think gets better, but their number went down. So this is the logic, I think, for them going over is you're buying what they did at the back half of the year. And I think if we described what happened to the Trailblazers at the end of the year is they found out what their identity was. And the moves they made this offseason solidified that identity. Simons is a great player, but he didn't necessarily fit the defensive identity that they had, at the end of the year. So he gets out of there. Obviously, Ayton, we all know he left there. They have some centers they brought in to fill that role. They are a defensive-minded team. And if you look at their depth chart, all right, Drew Holiday, Shaedon Sharpe, Toumani Camara, Donovan Klingon. That's 4 defensive players. You have Deni Avdija as your other guy there who's more, especially in that lineup, going to be more your offensive guy. But that's 4 very good defensive players. You got Jeremy Grant, Matisse Thybulle, and Scoot Henderson. Those, and by the way, I'm not saying who starts here because I think this team is one of the teams that can be in flux. But that's a lot of defensive talent. And so I agree with you that I think this is going to be a really tough team to go up against every night. And then when you look at the West, there's so much talent there. Somebody's going to have to lose, and maybe it's Portland. But I think when you look at early on, and even in the mid part of the season, I think youth is going to shine. And they're a young team. Like, they have a lot of guys that you would expect. January, February, they should have fresh legs relative to some of these other teams. But you mentioned Deni Avdija, and that's the guy I want to focus in on, because if we both buy their defense, if you don't buy the over for them, if you don't think they're going to be better than advertised, it's because you don't think they can score. At least that's what I would think. Deni Avdija averaged over 23 a game after the All-Star break, and really it was like 25, 26 a game in March and April. The question for me is, we were talking about who their best player is. For this season, I don't know if it's going to be this way, obviously, going forward and how you invest. I think he's their best player, especially on the offensive end. That guy is a monster offensive player. But is he good enough to be a number one for a team that can get 47, 48, or I'm sorry, that many wins? That's the question I have. I don't know if he can get 38, 39 wins, but he is a heck of a player. What do you see from him?
Well, here he's really, I mean, I saw him when he got to Washington, and I saw a guy that was very versatile, and I was impressed by him. But I thought, you know what's really his ceiling here? You know, he's blown that out of the water. And I don't think he was doing it in an empty way at all last year. I watched Portland a good amount the last 6 weeks of the season because they're fun. That's the main reason. They're fun. And look, there are teams in this league, and they're one of those teams. Like, you're like, okay, they're not like a threat in the playoffs. They're not going to make the playoffs. And there are teams like that all over the league, and you go, okay, I don't really have to watch them. And in some cases, I stop watching those teams because they're not fun. They're not interesting. They're not going to win, and they're not fun. Or they've got guys that are interesting that are hurt. And you just kind of put them to the side because it narrows your focus to cover the teams you really need to talk about most days. I watched them over the last 6 weeks a number of times, and I was like, man, that's a fun watch. And Avdija has blown away his limitations in my mind. I'm not saying this guy's going to be, average 25 points a game at any time, but I do think he's going to be pushing 20 with like 7 boards, 6, 7 assists. That's going to be a typical stat line for him. And there's going to be nights where he's going to have 30-point triple doubles. He's that versatile. And you know what? And you saw him again in Eurobasket. I watched him, and I'm just so impressed. He's very tough, man. The guy's tough. He competes. He likes contact. He's just so cerebral and just plays the game in a very efficient way. So I think this is going to be the year where it's not just like the second half of the year. It's like the whole year right out of the gate. And then the other guy is Shaedon Sharpe. Adam, I think Shaedon Sharpe has the potential. If he stays healthy this year, Shaedon Sharpe has the potential to average like 22, 23 points a game. Yeah. So you talk about, is their offense good enough? If you're getting 40, let's just say 40 to 45 a night from those two guys, that's going to be enough. Because look, Jeremy Grant's another guy that's averaged 20 plus in this league. He's there as another option. Drew Holiday at this stage of his career, he's more like, he's going to give you that 8 to 10 points a game range and give you all the intangible stuff that I talked about. So it's really going to come down mainly to those guys. If you have an offense that's that good or that level with a much better defense and athletes all over the floor that want to defend and the mentality to do it, I don't know, man. I think that adds up to 38 wins to me, at least.
The problem for me with Portland, because I did not have them as an over, is somebody in the West has to not win. And this is the same problem we go into the East when we try to pick overs, is somebody out there has to win. But in the West, there's some team that's going to get let out. And when you go top to bottom, there's only, I think, the Utah Jazz, who I look at and say, I don't think they're going to win. Everybody else, you can make a case and say something can happen. So where do the losses happen? I think they're going to be a good team. I think they're going to be all the things you said, but I'm not sure they'll be the over team. The team I went with an over is kind of in the same ballpark, a little bit ahead of them, and that's the San Antonio Spurs, which FanDuel has at 44.5 wins. And here's what, Victor Wembanyama, to me, when healthy, makes you a great defense. You're just going to have great defense there, and I think he plays a lot of games this year. Fox is out for a few weeks to start the year. This is the biggest X factor for me about whether or not they'll go over, is De'Aaron Fox's health. And then you have Stephen Castle, who I expect, obviously, fantastic rookie last year, and now I think he's ready to take a next step. But what it is there's next guys up. Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, Sohan, Barnes, Cornette, Olynyk. They actually have guys now that I think can fill out a rotation. And so for me, I look at that and say, okay, I think they're going to be one of the best defenses in the West, and they're going to be hard puzzle to solve night to night. Just like with Portland, they have youth, so I think they're going to have energy going into the year. I think that they are a contender for one of the top 6 teams in the Western Conference. I think everybody has them on the fringe of that play-in. I think they're a team that we could get to February, March and say, hey, this team looks like they're just in the playoffs, or they have a chance to just be in the playoffs, not on the bubble.
Well, I said earlier, I didn't see a team that obviously jumped out to me as like, no way they're getting to that number. I didn't see an obvious one. If I were to pick one, it was going to be the Spurs.
Okay.
So I tend to go the other way on them.
Interesting.
And here's why. So I'm thinking to myself, 44 wins, that would put them 9th in the West last year. Right. So the 8th place team, Memphis, had 48 wins. I think you and I can both agree, just by looking at the way this lays out, the top 6 teams from a year ago are all going to be as good or better than last year. Oklahoma City, Houston, the Lakers, Denver, the Clippers, and Minnesota. I don't know if you feel like all of them will be as good or better, assuming health. I do. So let's just say those 6 teams, okay, they're definitely the higher tier in the Western Conference. Then you go to Golden State, who I think is going to be better than they were a year ago. And they won 48 games.
Okay.
So there's 7 right there now. So now, see, when I said Portland, they could win 38, maybe, that still keeps them probably outside the play-in. Most likely,
for sure.
Right? But they'll be better. So I think for me to say San Antonio makes that leap, and I know that they won 34 games last year. And I understand, Wemby was hurt, and they didn't get Fox till later in the year. So I get that. So we have to assume health of Wembanyama. And Fox, you're talking about early in the year, it'll be a little bit delayed till he hits the ground running. They've got the reigning rookie of the year, and they just drafted Dylan Harper, who looks to me like he's going to potentially be a star player down the road, although they got to figure out how they're going to work these 3 guards and how they're going to play these 3 guys together and what the minutes are going to be. I just think that's a pretty big leap to think, okay, they go from 34, weren't still foot on the gas trying to win a ton of games last year, in Wemby's second year, to all of a sudden, boom, they're now solidly a play-in team in that 8-9 range in the West. I think that's a pretty big leap to take, because I think there's too many assumptions I'd have to buy into to believe that's going to happen. I'm not saying it can't, and maybe you're going to be dead right. Maybe if Wemby stays healthy, man,
that's the big one.
Yeah, I mean, if he stays healthy, you're right with what he does defensively. Like, there's no telling what could end up happening in 1 year. We've seen it many times in this league, what a team can do from 1 year to the next when one guy explodes on that level, like a superstar type player, then all of a sudden puts it together, and the leap that team takes, right? So that could happen. I just don't know that I would bet on them jumping up into that category. That to me is climbing into a whole nother tier for them, and I'm not sure I'm ready to put them there.
The big thing for me is Wemby played 46 games last year. If we just say, because I think health is always going to be a little bit of a question mark for such a unique body, but if we just say he plays 60 games, another 14, how many of those do you win? I think it's fair to say with this updated roster, you probably add 7 of those, half of those, and now you get into the range that you're talking about of what you of what you need. So they win 34. If you get to 41, we're in that zone that we're talking about where you're on the cusp. And that's what I expect this year. And I just think their roster is a little bit deeper. There's more guys that I'm interested to see. And if you break this down, so I had the core guys, Wemby, Fox, Castle, then you have the supporting guys, Vassell, Keldon Johnson, Sohan, Barnes, Cornette, maybe Olynyk you throw in there. Wild cards, they have Dylan Harper and Carter Bryant, who I think are interesting and fun wild card. I think this is a fun year for the Spurs, because you get a little bit of trying to get over the hump, but then you get 2 rookies that, to me, every minute they're on the court will be interesting.
I want to make a prediction about Carter Bryant down the road, maybe 5 years from now. I think Carter Bryant's eventually going to be the defensive player of the year in this league.
Really?
Carter
on a
Bryant,
team with Wembanyama. Okay.
Carter Bryant. Listen, I know all the regular NBA rosters weren't in Vegas. Okay, that was the first time I saw the guy live. I called 2 of his games.
Yeah, he's crazy.
He was so much more athletic than the next closest guy in Vegas. It was mind-blowing to me. Look, everybody on the floor is a good athlete. These are NBA, these are professional basketball players, guys either in the league, trying to get to the league, whatever, Europe. But there's a lot of great athletes. We all can agree with that. Guys that play basketball for a living are great athletes. They're all over the place. What he was doing and the way a guy that's built the way he's built, how light he is on the balls of his feet and the amount of ground he covers and the explosive athletic ability off the ground, man. Now, here's the thing. The statement I made about like defensive player of the year or all first team defense, whatever his ceiling could be, and I think he really is that good defensively. Here's the thing though. He's going to have to be good enough offensively to earn the minutes to justify being in the rotation to win something like that. That's the question for Carter Bryant. Like, can he get there with his shooting? If he doesn't get there, his minutes will be limited, and he ends up being a guy that won't be in that conversation, like a Matisse Thybulle, right? A guy that in Philly, you're like, man, because I didn't see anybody guard Steph Curry the way he did. I'm like, this guy's unbelievable defender. The problem is he couldn't make a corner three at a decent enough clip to stay on the floor. So therefore, he's just taken out of the conversation, and we don't talk about Matisse Thybulle along those lines anymore. So that's my point with Carter Bryant. You've got to earn your way onto the floor, which means you got to be at least decent offensively, where you're not a weakness where teams are, you're hurting your team because of your inability to score. If he can earn the minutes because he's rounded into a decent 3-point shooter, then I think he's a guy that's going to really open your eyes to what this guy could do defensively and athletically. It's incredible, really, honestly, to see a guy that big, that's that muscular, move the way he moves on the court. He's that bouncy and quick laterally. It's pretty impressive.
Like, you're talking me more into San Antonio. You're taking the other side, but now after hearing you, I think I'm even more emboldened to take them as the over.
Yeah, you're just like I said, man. You could end up being right, and we'll obviously going to revisit this. What I'm going to be curious, these teams we're talking about out of the gate is going to be so important for like how we view what we just said, right? Like if Portland starts out the year 2-9, and we're like, oh, okay, I guess I was way off on that. Right. You'd love to see these teams that we're talking about. That Portland get out of the gate 7-3. And I think it could set the tone for the whole year. Same with San Antonio and particularly Wemby staying on the court and being healthy.
So you did not have one as an over for the Eastern Conference, so I'll give mine. We'll put the pick you had for the under on the other side, but I get why you didn't have one. It's hard in the Eastern Conference to take an over because there's a lot of teams who are candidates, but none of the ones that you really want to bet on.
I took it over in the East. I took it over in the East.
Oh, I'm sorry. You do have another. I see it here. I see it here. Yeah.
I didn't take an obvious under in the West. I did take it over in the East.
Okay. I see it here. Go for it.
Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. That's a really low number, 32.
Well, you're a hater. You hate the Bulls, and that's okay.
Come on, man.
People
Come on.
in Chicago know that. No, I'm kidding. Don't start sending in vile stuff toward Adam from Chicago. All right. So look at what the Chicago Bulls did again, and I do believe there's some carryover for how teams end the year. Pulling it up right now. Look at the way that, and I had a great conversation with Billy Donovan out in Chicago a couple weeks ago.
Hall of Famer.
They finished the year 15-5. 15-5. And it wasn't just like, oh, well, they were playing a bunch of teams that were tanking or nobody was playing against them. They were winning games in incredibly improbable ways and winning games that were close down the stretch that both teams needed and wanted, because Chicago actually got to the point where like all of a sudden you're like, man, this team's a play-in team that came out of nowhere. And they're playing teams that were fighting to either get in or play in or seeding or whatever. And they're winning these games at the end of the season. So I was just impressed with the way they finished the year and the leap that Kobe White took last year, the leap that Josh Giddey took last year, in particular. And Giddey was a guy that was really maligned in Oklahoma City because he couldn't shoot. He's still not a great shooter, but man, can that guy move the ball and makes your team better offensively because of his IQ and his ability to just facilitate offense and chips in. He's a really good rebounder for his position. And look, he can drop 20, 30 any given night. Some of the young guys they have, Buzelis, I think, has a chance to be really, really good. And he showed that the second half of the year. I think the guy averaged like 16 points a game during the stretch I'm talking about to close the season. When it mattered most, he played his best. So and he's so young, he got so much better as the season went on. Again, similar to Portland, I see these young guys, like they already showed me something last year, and now I think there's more there even. Yeah. And they finished on a high note. Billy was extremely optimistic and positive about the way they finished it and the way they could start this year. I think the number was, what was that number, James? 30?
34, 32.5.
The 32, so 33 wins. I think they got a great chance to be above that.
Somebody has to do it. I mean, this is the thing about the East. When you look at the over-unders, there's a bunch of teams that are bunched up. They're right around this mark. So Vegas very bearish on the Eastern Conference as a whole. So somebody has to break through. I hope it's Chicago. You call me a Chicago hater. I hope it's Chicago, and I like Buzelis now, especially if he gets to enter. I'm curious how they're going to start, because you're going to have Giddey and Kobe White for sure. You're going to have the big fella Vooch inside. In between there, do you go with Dosunmu, who's basically a guard, but you have to play him out of position? Do you go to Okoro? Same thing. Who do you go? But Buzelis there, now you kind of have no, three offensive guy. I know Buzelis can guard, but are you asking him to be that in your starting lineup as opposed to a two-way player? So to me, who they start is a bit of an interesting question. And as much as I like the scrappiness of their end of year, I don't know that it was a recipe for consistent winning. And then when you get behind them, there's just too many question marks. So I'm not sure about Chicago. I'm curious what people think. Let's move on to my team in the Eastern Conference here, just to keep it moving. The Atlanta Hawks are at 47.5 wins, and that's high. They're one of the teams that is actually picked to be high this year in the standings, and yet I kind of love their roster construction because they have the double defensive guards, Dyson Daniels, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. By the way, both my guys. Two of my guys here alongside Trae Young, which is just perfect. So you always have a defensive – there it is. Bring it up. So you always have a defensive player to kind of spell him. And then look at their wings. Jalen Johnson, who I absolutely love, Porzingis and Risache. That's great forwards. So you have guard depth, you have forward depth. The only question is Okongwu is your center, who I like, is a little undersized and not a lot of proven depth behind him. So their big man situation's a little scary. But guards – forwards, to me, I look at that and say, man, that's at top of the Eastern Conference. Like they're on par with any of these other teams that we consider great.
So what do you think that number ends up being? Like, where do you think
I think they can get to 50 wins. So it's not even like it's going to meaningfully change their order, because I think you look at Orlando. I like the Knicks, and I like Cavs. Behind that, though, I think they're the next best team.
You think they're better than Detroit?
Detroit was one of the teams that was a question mark. Like Philadelphia and Detroit, to me, I could see going up or down from their line. So it could be Detroit, but I think that they might have to recontextualize who they are with some of the pieces that are coming back and some of the pieces they lost.
So, look, I know there's been a lot of hype and a lot of talk about them, and maybe they live up to it, maybe they don't. But I guess what it comes down to for me is you've got to believe in the top of that roster. You got to believe in that. And I'm not as big a believer, I think, as you are in that. I like some of their young talent. I think they've got a chance to be really, really good defensively, and they can put lineups on the floor, especially like the two lockdown corners. You put Dyson Daniels out there with Nickeil Alexander-Walker. You can have two guys on the wings or even on the ball that could cause all kinds of problems. You got to protect Trae to an extent. So I think the defense could be there, but you still have to buy into overall the toughness of the group and the efficiency, I think, of Trae Young, to me, is the biggest question.
I think the speed in your backcourt, youth, speed in your backcourt, and length in the regular season can help you steal a lot of wins. Their wings, Jalen Johnson, Porzingis, Risache, very long, cover a lot of ground. And then Dyson Daniels, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, full court press all game. There's just a lot of games you can steal on a Tuesday in November because other team said, man, they've got so many guys they can throw at me full court. And I think that's what they have. So I think they're going to steal some wins. I think they're going to be a good team. I'm going to predict 50 wins for the Hawks. My Atlanta Hawks, I think they were my team 2 years ago. I think they're back to being my team again this year. Let us know in the comments. So we went over on Bulls, Blazers, Spurs, and Hawks. Do you agree or disagree? Let us know in the comments. On the other side, we're going to take a break. On the other side, not quite as optimistic about a handful of teams, although one of these we both said is either going to be 10 wins over or 10 wins under. What team is it? Talk about it on the other side. First, you guys know that moment, the one when you realize you left your favorite pair of sunglasses at the beach or on the roof of your car or at a gas station 3 states away, or maybe as I am right now in sunny San Diego, where you need sunglasses every single day. You leave them at the Airbnb, and then you get home and you go, gosh, dang it, I love that pair. Well, fortunately, Shady Rays has you covered. They've changed the game. Their sunglasses are made for real life. Seriously good looking, lots of different styles, polarized, durable, not stupidly expensive. But the best part is if you break them, or even if you just lose them or leave them at your Airbnb, Shady Rays will send you a brand new pair. No guilt trip, just replacements, not a ton of questions. They say, okay, yes, we see you're a customer. Here's your order. We'll send you a new one. So now you can actually wear your sunglasses without fear on hikes, at concerts, on the boat, wherever. Shady Rays is eyewear that has your back. We've teamed up with Shady Rays to bring you an exclusive offer. Head to shadyrays.com and use the code AC35. Very important to use our code so we get credit for it. AC35 gets you 35% off of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades, rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Also want to tell you guys about FanDuel. It's the best place to find all your favorite player props, and now you can make the smarter play with new performance trends. Want to see if the guy's hitting that over consistently, or maybe they've been flirting with a potential triple-double. Get the latest stats right inside the app and see who's heating up. And once the game starts, that's when things get interesting. You can combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. If you don't already have FanDuel, it's not too late to get in on the action. You get started with $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/AllNBA to join today. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Must be 21 or older.
Present in select states for Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino. Or 18 plus and present in D.C. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.
All right, back here, All NBA Show segment 2. We gave you the sunshine and rainbows. Now we're going to give you the teams we might be a little bit lower on. I want to start with your Eastern Conference pick here, Legs, because I feel like this one is a bit of a hedge. There's such a mystery team.
Well, here's the deal. This is going to be the wildest potential fluctuation of any team in the league by far.
Yeah.
And I think we all know kind of who that is, right? There's only one team that falls into that category. This team could be third in the East, or they could win 26 games. It's the Philadelphia 76ers. And the number on them is 43.5, which makes no sense to me.
It's such a, we're just going for the middle. It won't be that.
It doesn't make any sense. No, it's like, so to me, if you're setting that line, right, you either are setting that because you buy into health, in which case they're going to smoke that number.
Right.
If they're healthy, if Joel Embiid and Paul George play 65 to 70 games even, which, I mean, that's crazy. I'm sitting there saying healthy, and I'm still talking about missing like 17 to 20 games. It's nuts. But for them, that would be considered healthy. If those guys play 65 games, and assuming Maxi's healthy, like that team's they're going to smoke 43 wins. So how do you come up with that number? Because if you don't believe they're going to be healthy, they're going to win 30 or less.
Yeah. Just
so
like
how do you
last year.
come up with 43? Like, I just don't know how you come up with that. So for me, and I don't want to be this, man. I don't want to. Everything I do when I make predictions is based on health, assuming good health. I just think that's a reach I can't take with this team. I don't think I can take a reach of a leap of faith with health with Joel Embiid. I just don't. He's on the ground too much for a guy his size in that kind of weight. He falls too much. There's too many things that go wrong when you're on the ground as much as he is for a variety of reasons. The guy plays hard defensively, and that's part of it. He's always going to attack everything at the rim. He gets himself off balance, but he falls a lot offensively too. He falls 5, 6, 7 times a game. And it's just a matter of time. Someone lands on him. He lands and does twist something or hurt something or catch himself with his wrist or whatever. Even the guy's had how many facial fractures because his head's constantly taking a beating because he's so physical in the paint. I have a hard time thinking, you know what? Now here we are at this stage of his career. This is the year he's going to give you 70. And if he doesn't, I don't think, here's my point, Adam. I don't think Joel Embiid gives you 65 to 70, right? If he's hurt at all, it's going to be a serious injury. That's my point.
You're,
Because
yeah, you're saying he's either playing like 10 games or maybe he's playing 55 games,
right?
But it's not going to be 70.
Exactly. That's my point. Like healthy, he's at like 60. Unhealthy, he's at like 23. And that's it. That's the end. And look, Paul George, by the way, is another guy that I think you'd have a hard time buying into. Oh, he's going to be healthy this year. Paul George has had all kinds of injuries throughout his career. So I'm sorry. It's hard for me to just suspend all of that stuff, that track record, just put it to the side and say 2 guys, this stage of their career, been around a long time with this many injuries that have piled up. And now this is going to be the year that they manage to stay on the court. I'm sorry. I have a hard time believing it, which means for me, they end up significantly below 43. If they do end up being healthy, they're going to win 50 plus.
Yeah. And that's the thing is even what you're talking about there, if you get 55 games out of Embiid and Paul George, like real true games, then I still take their over because I think that that's probably enough, especially in that Eastern Conference. Like they're so good. And by the way, we've all seen the videos and the photos of Joel Embiid. He looks like he's dropped weight. He's doing what he has to do to give himself the best chance here. But history tells us that's a tough one. So I get this one. I'm with you. It is one of the funnier lines, 43.5 wins. I don't think anybody thinks they're winning 43.5 games. They're either winning 33 or 50. And, that's why it's a bit of a stay away here. And then on top of that, I want to ask you about Jared McCain because he had a great first half, obviously of his rookie season, then goes down. You think, okay, guys can survive that. But then he gets this injury in camp, which is going to hold him out until maybe the first month of the season. And I just wonder, guys can survive a rookie injury. You miss a couple months, whatever. It's fine. You come back into camp next year and you rebuild that momentum. But now he's going to have to go into his second season, without momentum because he won't have this camp behind him. I feel like that affects him. I think that's a hard thing to overcome.
Well, totally agree with you. And let's and he was definitely impressive in the time that he played last year, 23 games, over 15 points a game. Really, really hard the way he attacks offensively. He's just relentless. Very, very impressed with his season. But here's the thing, most of what he did was without those guys. And now he's already hurt, right? So we don't really know exactly what Jared McCain's going to look like if those guys are healthy and playing. How does that impact his rhythm, his minutes, right? We agree he's an impressive offensive talent. And so he's got a knack for scoring, but he did a lot of what he did last year because they had no one else to do it. So he had this incredible opportunity as a rookie to have all kinds of touches and freedom and shots and no worries about any of that stuff. Not even worried about winning games. Didn't really play on a team that was worried about winning because those guys were out so much and so early in the year. It's almost like the season never happened for the Sixers. And now he's already hurt to start the year. Look, I think the guy's going to have a very good career. I think he's definitely a guy that's always going to be able to put the ball in the basket. He's got a knack for it. He plays hard, but there's so much unknown about what that's going to look like when he plays, if those guys are on the court too. So sorry, man, there's just too much uncertainty with the Philadelphia 76ers. Nobody knows. And especially, who doesn't know? Nick Nurse doesn't know. Nick Nurse doesn't know. He has no idea what's going to happen when the season starts and if he's going to even be able to coach. Because last year he was just sitting there coaching a team that could not win at the NBA level because of who they were running out there every night.
All right. You had it. So the Sixers, I think, are a good one for all the reasons you just laid out, even though we know it can go either way. I picked 2 because I'm a bit more of a hater over here. So first one I want to do is one that we disagreed on. You had them as an over, I had them as an under, and that's the Dallas Mavericks. And I get why you would be over. If you told me they were going to have a healthy season, I would say, okay, you guarantee it, I'm going to take the over. But this Anthony Davis detached retina injury to me is scary. It has come out. He's going to have to wear goggles for the rest of his life. He'll never play a basketball game without some kind of protective eyewear that he's going to have to wear. That's an adjustment. But it also tells me, I have just heard that injury, what a unique one, by the way, detached retina, that is something that is hard to not re-injure. Even with goggles, it could be a thing that you can just run into issues with. You rub your eye the wrong way or you do something and it can flare up again. We saw the pictures of him with his really reddish eyes at media day and through training camp. If you told me they have a lot of depth at their front court. So I think people look at that and say, yeah, but they can get PJ Washington in there and Daniel Gafford can play. But I look at their offense and say, you're counting on D'Angelo Russell, Klay Thompson, Anthony Davis, and Max Christie. None of those guys to me are a number one guy. Anthony Davis, the closest. And if you took him out of the equation, I'm not sure I trust their offense in a very loaded West. And I predict that Anthony Davis will miss some time this year with that eye injury. So that's why I'm low on him. Is I think Anthony Davis is the one piece you can't take out of that equation, and I'm worried he's not going to be there as consistent as they want him to be.
I'm not as convinced that he's going to miss the amount of time that it sounds like you think he will. I think Anthony Davis ends up playing most of the season, and I think what they can put out there defensively with their length and adding Cooper Flagg to the mix, so I think it's going to be immediate impact from day one. There's already been some pretty cool clips out there of what he's doing early on in camp and some of the stuff that he's showing them. His shooting is going to be streaky, but it doesn't matter because he does so many other things to help you win, particularly his want-to defensively, his versatility defensively, his athleticism, his lateral quickness, his timing and anticipation defensively, which I got to see firsthand in Vegas. I was so impressed, I would watch him off the ball and just his anticipation for the next rotation, the next thing defensively, his communication on that end for a young player, so impressive. So he helps them immediately, even on nights he doesn't shoot well or score. Like he'll have games this early where maybe he has 6 points and we're still talking about him a lot after the game. That's the kind of player I think Cooper Flagg is. And then there's going to be other nights when he's going to get 20 to 25 points. Those nights he hits a couple threes early in the game, he's going to have 20-point games, and he's going to get his confidence up. You could see him kind of struggle with it mentally a little bit if he's missing that deep shot early. So that's going to fluctuate, but his effort won't. His impact will be there every night. You put him out there with Anthony Davis. When they want to play a lineup with Lively and Anthony Davis and Cooper Flagg.
Yeah, you're going to have a hard time scoring inside.
3, 4, 5. Yeah, that is really something. And their closeout ability to the three-point line with Davis and Flagg, as well as guarding the paint. So, and I think D'Angelo Russell was a great, sort of a rental to bide time. And we don't know when we're going to see Kyrie, and we don't know exactly what Kyrie is going to look like, but all indications are it's probably going to be sometime in February. That would be my guess on when you see him, which will give him enough time. Maybe he gets in 20 to 25 games before the playoffs.
I'd be surprised, but maybe if that happens, it's a game changer.
Yeah, I mean, you're adding that late to the mix, but even in the meantime, D'Angelo Russell's a guy that's proven he can score, man, and he's a pretty nice replacement while you're waiting on Kyrie Irving to go with these other pieces that they have. So I think basically the number that was put out there on them was basically they're a 500 team. I think they're better than a 500 team.
The thing with them, if you just look and said, pick a random night, who's the leading scorer, Anthony Davis is your likely option. He's number one. But if you told me after that, it's not Anthony Davis, he's not there. Who's the leading scorer? D'Angelo Russell, Klay Thompson, Max Christie, Cooper Flagg. All these guys are just guys I wouldn't count on going into a game saying, okay, they're going to be your leading scorer and it's going to be enough for you. And that's why I'm a little bit lower on them. But defensively, I do agree. They're going to be, they are going to be a really tough team.
I can tell you right now, you can pencil this in. Anthony Davis could be their leading scorer. Their next leading scorer is going to be D'Angelo Russell until we, whatever happens with Kyrie when he comes back. I don't know what he's going to look like. Eventually, maybe it's Kyrie by the time they go to the playoffs, but it's going to be D'Angelo Russell without question is going to be their second leading scorer. And then I think it's going to fluctuate a lot of nights between Klay Thompson and Cooper Flagg. I think those guys will take turns being the third guy, and there's your third and fourth guys. And then, you look at their bench is a little bit more suspect. And then you got PJ Washington, you got Najee Marshall there. You've got, I think Jaden Hardy can take a leap this year, and it sounded like Jason Kidd agreed with me when I talked to him about that a couple weeks ago. And then it's the centers. Those guys they're going to shoot 70+% from the field. And on given nights, some of those guys, Lively or Gafford, those guys are going to get 14 points, one of them. All dunks or putbacks.
Yeah.
So there's your offense. But to answer your question, it's D'Angelo Russell. It's going to be him. And he's capable. And he's going to have the ball in his hands a ton. Even more than he did in LA. He's going to have the ball in his hands a ton because they have to have it. There's nobody else that can really generate lead guard offense for them besides D'Angelo Russell until Kyrie comes back. So I think D'Angelo Russell is very capable of averaging, 16, 18 as your second leading scorer.
Well, let us know in the chat what you think. So we took overs with Spurs, Hawks, Trailblazers, Mavs, and Bulls. We were split on Mavs. Went under on Sixers and Mavs, or at least I went under on Mavs. So let us know what you think in the chat. I'm always curious. I mean, obviously, these are early days. We haven't even watched preseason other than for 2 teams so far. So this next week, Legs, we get some of our initial preseason action, which I'm excited about just to start drawing some conclusions. But those are our over-under. Yeah, those are our over-unders. Like I said, the East, hard to take overs. In the West, hard to take unders. It's kind of exciting one. We are back, though. Next week, we'll have 2 episodes for you as we're starting to ramp up. This is our training camp. We're just getting into it. So we're going to start ramping up here with 2 episodes next week as we start to break down the initial preseason games and some of the storylines that emerge. We hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure that you hit the like button, and make sure you're subscribed so you never miss one of our episodes or all the content that we have coming up. Legs, great stuff today.
Yeah, man, enjoyed it. And I got my first preseason game this weekend with my new broadcast partners, Mike Green, Richard Jefferson, and myself. We've got a preseason game Sunday night, the Lakers and Warriors, man. So I'll be getting my first action in for the season as well this weekend.
Lakers and Warriors. There it is. Lock it in, everybody. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoy your weekend. We'll see you on the other side. Hit that like button on the way out.
We all silly like the mayor.